Good afternoon. This is Georgia Peachcast coming to you from Cherokee County, Georgia. This is our first episode, so I'm Pat.
And I'm Greg.
Okay. We will be talking about community, local, and national issues, as well as activities that are of interest to every audience.
All right. Tonight, we think that in this environment, we should be making sure that you are taking care of yourself, your neighbors, your family, and your community.
And we promise we will always present factual information and we will share the sources of that information. So we thought tonight or this afternoon we'd talk about education, especially since my co-host here is a ex teacher. He can probably talk more about it than I can, but
I don't
that's
know, that's like saying you're an ex-Marine. You're never an ex-Marine,
yeah.
right? Once a teacher, always a teacher.
Education is a tough subject to begin with anyway. And then on top of that, we had the fact that now the National Education Department is going to be cut, and the funding's already, I think, been released. Has it already been done?
I'm not prepared for that question, unfortunately.
Okay, I know.
The last I so there's some lawsuits that are pending that have been shot right at them as soon as they tried to do that, and I think that the funding is in limbo at the moment. It hasn't been completely denied, but it also it's on hold, which is why school districts are pretty much freezing programs and things like
Starting to
that for next year at this
scramble.
point.
Yeah,
They're warning everybody. So,
so I don't know what has going to happen in that respect. It's scary. It's scary, especially for children, even college students who thought they were getting some possible relief for uh, their loans. That was all being managed by the Department of Education.
hmm
So now they're in a quandary as to what's going to happen about even what they've got and what they were trying to get new ones. I've got a grandson that's gotten some of that. I got three grandsons, two other grandsons that already gotten theirs, and they're still paying it off. So
yeah.
they're gonna worry
Well,
about.
and it's not just that, it's also grants. Like one of the biggest is the Pell Grant, which you don't have to pay back. And that money is frozen. And that's going to affect millions of potential college, students. But you also have the effect on, special programs in our public schools. So,
And if you got a handicapped child, all right, that handicapped child was being his education or his and her education was definitely being partially, if not completely, funded by the Department of
yeah, the special ed funding
yeah.
is directly linked to, EI. Well, shoot, I should know that. Special educator. Um, the funding is managed by the Department of Education, and so there's legal problems with what they're doing because there's government mandates um, that are supposed to require the funding of special education, for example. But that money has now been frozen.
Yeah.
And so, for what little the federal government was supplying to begin with, but we'll talk about unfunded mandates at a different time period.
Yeah.
Um,
Under Title One,
yeah,
there's a
that's
number of
big one.
programs that are all going to be cut
hmm
because of not having the funding to take care of it.
Yeah, and they're doing this all under the guise of, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes.
So, which, is their buzzword for let's, well, I won't say that. Well, it's a podcast. I can pretty much say whatever the hell I want, right? Well, it's basically a buzzword for let's only give money to privileged people,
Yeah.
and let's not give money to underprivileged people, people that are historically have had to struggle harder than people of privilege. And so, you know, that's not the country I grew up in, but that's apparently the country we're living in now.
Yeah. That's the plan across a number of programs. A number of cuts and reasons for that is just to do exactly that. Okay. Shift the money to, you know,
Elon Musk's pocket.
yeah, to the top end.
Yeah.
And everybody's, all the top end is jumping in on it because they can see where they can do.
Wait, I thought we were talking about education, not kleptocracy.
Yes. My favorite subject, hypocrisy.
Kleptocracy.
What's that?
Kleptocracy. Yeah, the
Hypocrisy?
kleptomaniacs,
Oh, okay.
at the top
I
that
had,
can't keep their figures out of all the pies.
yeah.
So, that's what happens in countries like Russia and China and
Yeah.
so um
I
unfortunately that's where we are right now. So how hard the people fight back will determine what happens in 10 years. So,
there's a problem that's ingrained I think in the U.S. and Americans more than anybody else, and it runs across all aspects of our lives. Somehow or another, I see a lot of selfishness in everything.
mhm.
Even at the low ends, everybody is concerned totally about themselves. So many of the people that I talked to prior to the election were really talking about what was concerning them with no regard for what was going to happen to everybody else.
Did you forget about Gordon Gecko?
Who?
Gordon Gecko, the big financier, Wall Street guy of the 80s.
Oh, what that
Yeah, what his motto is? Greed is good.
greed? Oh, greed is good. Yes.
So this, honestly, this has been a shift in our culture since Reagan. We used to be the people that gave, gave, gave,
It,
and and it started from the bottom up,
and
and now you were exactly right. Everyone is so busy scrambling for their own tiny share of the pie, and they don't really care what happens to other people.
and
So, that does not bode well for
unfortunately, that's led
anything
us
we're
to
trying to
right
do.
where we are right now.
Yeah,
You know,
that's how we got
to,
here.
to,
It's one of the reasons.
it is one of the reasons. It's one of the
Um,
reasons.
and we won't even talk about dark money, but it's a reflection of where in our society do we get to decide where money goes? Does it go to enrich as many citizens as possible and lift them higher than their parents were, or at least keep their station? Or does the money just get stripped from their pockets and it goes to the wealthiest
Yeah.
people in the country
It doesn't
and the more
it doesn't
privileged?
trickle down.
Well,
It was,
oh, now we're going to talk about trickle down
yeah,
economics.
trickle down account. It's trickled
The
down.
rising tide lifts all boats, but
Yeah,
it lifts the biggest boats more than others.
yeah.
The bigger your
I'm
boat is,
surprised.
the
I'm
more likely
surprised
you
they
are
haven't.
to
You haven't.
survive the rising tide.
I haven't heard that come out of Trump or Leon or you know
That's because it has
Musk either.
been,
That's what they're doing it for. I haven't heard them actually say that.
well, that's because the data, I'm sorry, not the data, but it has been overused by the Republican camp. And it's been proven by well-known economists, sorry,
That
on both sides that it doesn't
doesn't
work.
work. It doesn't work.
It
That's
doesn't
right.
work, flat out. And so they stopped using that, and instead they built culture wars
Well,
that distract people from what's really going on.
and
So,
now, at this point in time, they're not even trying to explain it.
well, no,
They're not.
because they're in charge of everything.
They got everything.
So they're going to try to grab and change as much as they can, as fast as they can. And they're starting with programs like this. Like, how can we uh, disable the educational system? And the fastest way you do that is by getting rid of federal funding. You put a huge dent in the pocket, and all of the special programs start to disappear that support disadvantaged kids, you know?
Up and down the thing. I started to say something, and sitting in the back of the car with two gentlemen in front of me the other day, and I started to say, talking about Social Security, I was about to say he doesn't dare to do that because he'd have an uproar. And both guys in front of me started laughing when I said, he doesn't dare to do that. And I think just before, coming across the wire is that Musk is going after Social Security, and yeah,
They said it before they got elected.
Yeah.
Let's face it. You know, they did an excellent smoke and mirrors job on their constituents. And, you know, all of the people that are either looking forward to Social Security, like me, because I've put into it my whole life. I mean, let's face it, that's my damn money. Okay. So,
And that's all my money.
yeah.
I am not. I between now and my Social Security check, I'm not spending very much at all. Waiting to find out what my if my Social Security check is going to come in on time.
Well, come on over. We'll do some pork sliders.
I might just do that. I might just do that. So
I just took some really good pork off the smoker. So,
yeah, good,
you
good.
know,
Yeah,
I can spot you a meal.
just keep it. Just don't eat it all. Save some. I may be over somewhere in about
Hey,
the fourth Wednesday of this month.
I can even make you feel like you're in a cafe in
Oh, yeah,
Manhattan and serve you a cup of espresso.
that's fine. Yeah, yeah. He's not now, and the scariest of all is just to ignore the law now. Now they're even ignoring what the courts are starting.
Why should they pay attention to the law when the Supreme Court has given them a pass
Right.
on being held accountable in a fashion that any other American would have been held accountable for?
Yeah.
So they have been shown by our court system that they can do whatever they want and get away with it.
Yeah.
And my question is, how long will it be before the average American has the same attitude? How long will it be before kids in classrooms decide, well, if Trump can get away with it, I can get away with it. You know,
Uh,
and oh, by the way, where's that going to come from? It's going to come from their parents.
yeah. Let's hope. Let's hope it
So,
doesn't get to that point.
you know,
That
I mean, just
something
look
happens.
at Nazi Germany. Kids were turning in their parents for crying out loud. You know, the Hitler Youth would
Oh,
turn in their parents for being, you know,
yes,
Jewish sympathizers.
they were.
And is that what we want?
I don't know. Well,
You know?
we're so close. Regardless of what everybody has, what they have tried to tell everybody, they got a mandate. They didn't have a mandate. It was what tenths of a percent, that they actually ended up
Yeah.
on top.
Yep. It
So
was closer
they
than they
don't
want to
have
admit.
that. As it won't take very many really of their own people. Yeah, it will. It won't take many of their own people to turn around to all
Oh
of a
no,
sudden for them to
it's
realize that.
already happening.
Yeah,
It's already happening. There's already we should
it's really been a
that
short
would be
time.
a good podcast app too, is how many people have already come out and said, "Oh shit,"
Yeah,
you know,
look what we did.
I screwed up.
Yep, look
I
what we
should
did.
not have voted for them.
And I'm going. You know me.
So,
I'm going to pound away at the 80 million that didn't even bother to vote.
well, that's been a historical problem in our country that has to be
It has.
fixed.
It
People
is.
need to vote,
Yeah,
damn
I
it.
know.
You know.
I know. But this one you would have thought, with as much controversy that was going on, and that he had been there before, you would have thought that they would have come out and been different. But it's not.
Hmm.
They came out, as you say, it's historical from the standpoint of a third, and a third. A third one way, a third the other way, and then a third that
Well, that
just
would
didn't
be
even.
another podcast right there. Is what are the strategies that we could use in future elections to get more people to vote? And it's not just the personalities at the top.
No,
Okay.
that's one of the subjects we
So,
eventually want to get to is
you know,
about getting out the vote. Because again, there's still votes to be gotten. There's still elections to be made, and we definitely have to work on that one. So voting and getting out the vote is something a lot of people are still working on. I know many people we're all still working on doing that, getting prepared for getting out the vote. So
mhm.
that's something that has to do.
Yeah, no, yeah, the
Well,
GOTV has to get better
yeah,
for sure.
but.
Even though we worked our asses off on that.
I'm waiting to run into somebody tell me that they didn't vote because they didn't like either one of the candidates, so they just didn't vote.
Well,
But but
it's their civic duty, but it's also their freedom to not. So, freedom to vote also means the freedom to not vote.
that's right.
You just get to
That is true.
just, you know, if you didn't vote, you get to shut the hell up for the next four
Yeah.
years because, you know,
I like
you chose to abstain from the situation.
I
Um,
I like Australia's. You have to vote. You have
yeah,
to.
but they also have a national holiday for it. Nobody works. Everybody
Yeah,
votes.
once you get to the point of saying that you have to vote, then
So,
why not let everybody
true,
off for the day?
true.
That's the point, is to get everybody to vote.
Not only that would be, looking at other voting systems and how they encourage the people to vote is a
Yeah.
very good
Even the voting,
podcast topic for sure.
even the
So,
voting system, the registration voting system we have here compared to some of the other countries are way ahead of us. They're doing it they're voting online, they're registering.
this has all come about because of how society perceives public
Public
education in
education.
America,
Yeah.
which currently is too many of them think it's substandard and doesn't deserve to be funded. Well, there's this great clip. We're gonna actually play a few of them from this guy. It's called "Advice from an Older Farmer" on Reddit, and he makes some really good points that dovetail well into what we're talking about.
Also, everybody says in the comments, Project 2025, didn't you read that? That's his platform.
Hey, Skylar, my name's Will Westmoreland, and I'm a farmer down in southwest Missouri. And I just wanted to reach out to you and tell you that I am not an FAFO kind of guy. We probably disagree with each other on everything political, but there's a very specific reason why people are getting upset with you. And I wanted to explain that to you if you'd be willing to listen to an older guy kind of walk you through the process. I also want to let you know that I've been a political consultant for over 30 years. I want to be right up front about that. I do that in addition to farming. And I want you to know a lot of younger people don't know, and I don't mean that in a condescending way, but more of an educational way. A lot of younger people don't know that right-wing talk radio and news, the pundits, the talking heads, and right-wing talk radio, etc., have been working for over 40 years to develop in rural people exactly the kinds of ideas that you have in your head, that all politicians are crooks, that they're all the same, that you can't trust traditional media, that anything you hear that comes out of Washington, D.C. or New York or the New York Times or CBS News, that it's all a lie. And they did this on purpose, and they started with Ronald Reagan. We used to have what's called a fairness doctrine in this country, where if you were a radio station or a television station and you were using the public airwaves to present a message, we had a fairness doctrine where you were required by law to share the other side of the story. And President Ronald Reagan, who was president when I was in high school and a little bit younger than that, had the fairness doctrine eliminated. He had it taken out of the books. And there was a specific reason for that. It was designed so that organizations like Fox News and right-wing talk radio could start spreading the lie that all mainstream media was bad. Now, this was during the time of Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, all the other news heads that we had out there that were highly respected. But it was a strategy to make it so that the airwaves no longer had to present an unbiased case. And then these right-wing media sources like Rush Limbaugh and Fox News, etc., began pouring it on to rural America. You can't trust politicians. You can't trust the news. And what they did is they focused on destroying the trust in these institutions so that they could replace it with another institution. And they did that. They replaced it with Fox News. They replaced it with right-wing talk radio. And I can't tell you how many times when I was growing up, when I was your age, I'd walk into a job site or be on a farm and I would hear right-wing talk radio blaring on the radio all day long. And then after they had destroyed our faith in media institutions in rural America, they then turned their guns toward the government itself. And they began building in us a distrust of government organizations. And Skylar, here's the facts, okay? You can look this up on your own, but these are the facts. Rural America uses more welfare than the blue cities do. Rural America needs more help feeding our children. We need more help keeping our hospitals open. And guys like you and I, farmers out there that grow row crops or do agroforestry or raise cattle, we take welfare too. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with that because we can't control the cost of our inputs. We can't control the cost of what we sell our products for. We got to pay for shipping both ways, as Kennedy said. But the reality of the situation is they were able to instill in us the idea that the government money coming to us was okay and was a good thing, but the government money going everywhere else was a scam or a sham. or communistic or socialistic, etc. So it reached a fever pitch finally where a lot of rural people, over 70% of rural farmers and ranchers, only believe the Fox Newses and the talk radio. And when they came to you and told you that Trump wasn't going to implement Project 2025 and that he didn't have anything to do with it, you believe that. And you're not alone. All I'm here to tell you is that you were lied to. I'm not asking you to admit you were wrong. I'm not telling you you effed around and found out, because I don't want to see you lose your farm. And if there's anything I can do to help you not lose your farm, I'd be happy to do it.
So, he's talking about, rural America and farmers, but this plays out in every single public school, especially if it's not a
across the
wealthy
country.
school
Yeah.
district. Okay.
There's
So,
there's more rural areas in this country in every state than there is suburbans.
of course,
Yeah.
and those rural areas are the ones that are strapped for cash more than anything. We like to talk about urban schools being trapped for cash and stuff. That doesn't even compare to rural schools out in especially in farm country. And so, if you underfund your schools, if you don't give them the money they need to hire good people to educate your children, are we going to be graduating kids that can think critically?
Which to some degree why this generation of children is really, they have not been given the necessary education and taught how to move on and be beyond where their parents, me, you, have gotten.
Yeah,
In general, they are
yeah,
not. They're not way ahead. As they may be in specific
yeah,
situations. Yours or mine
yeah,
may be all right, but mine is struggling. Mine is struggling more than
yeah,
more than most others.
yeah.
So there's some
And
others that have done very well. That's fine, but in general, the younger generation is definitely, and it's how many times has it been recorded that the younger generation today is not going to be better than their parents.
yeah, well, my economics professor told me that in 1984.
Yeah.
You guys can do the math on my age there.
Okay.
So, but you know, at that time, back in 1984, the early years of Reagan, he was saying that 30% of our class was not going to be able to afford to buy their own home to achieve the American dream.
Yeah.
And honestly, he wasn't far off. I've been truly fortunate in my lifetime as a career educator to have had the opportunity to afford my own home, to be in a state where they value education enough that there is the Hope Scholarship,
Uh,
which is an amazing scholarship. And so both of my kids were able to qualify for that, and we were able to squirrel some money away for their housing and everything. But most states, most communities, most especially rural communities, they don't have that opportunity, and Georgia's very unique in that, and I think that's a great thing to bring up about Georgia
it
is
is.
that um, they had the forethought to say, okay, well, if we're going to let people gamble with their money in the lottery, then we're going to take a cut and we're going to give it to the kids,
Yeah.
and it didn't matter where the kids come from, rural, metro, urban, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Three of
So
my no, three of my grandchildren took advantage of that, and it's because of that, that availability
yeah,
that they graduated.
I got news for you. If I had to squirrel away the money that I would have had to have to send my two kids, just two, through college at the same time, I'm not sure I could have afforded house payments.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a lot. Yeah,
so,
that's a whole nother subject to the cost of education.
but then you take that statement and you apply it to all the states that don't have a Hope Scholarship. How many parents are on the same income level as my wife and I, where they would have to choose? Do I put money in my 401k
Or I send
for
my
my
kids.
own future retirement, or do I put money away for my kids so they can go to college? I mean, this is America. Why are we having to,
Yeah.
why are we forcing people to make that choice?
I just saw a number
Yeah.
before we started that said that there were 63% of students that were applying for a 4-year college, and only 60% of them actually got in. Now, that number that's not wrong. It was more than that. It was a lower number that got actually into a 4-year school compared to the ones that applied. So my mind says they're applying, but they haven't got the academic background in order to get into the school.
Hmm.
Especially if you talk about Georgia, where there is the Hope Scholarship, and they could have gotten in on a Hope Scholarship, but even then they had to maintain a certain level to,
They do. Yeah, no, they have to
right,
maintain, basically an 87%
yeah,
average
yeah.
through high
So,
school on average
right.
to earn the hope. But that's for kids that are motivated and have supportive parents and have supportive teachers. That's a good fraction of now, not all those kids want to go to college,
No.
but now that money can be used to go to trade school. So, or to nursing school, or wherever they see their educational pathway going. So,
And the fact that that still some that applied, and that's nationally, not in Georgia. So Georgia may be a bit different state from the standpoint of supporting students to do that. And I don't know that. I don't know for a fact how many other states have something similar to the Hope Scholarship. Do you?
I don't off the top of my head.
I
Now,
don't
there
either.
is a certain level of reciprocity.
Yeah,
So that means that the reciprocity statement says that if there is a state next door, like Alabama, that has certain programs and a kid wants to go into those programs, they can use their Hope Scholarship
that's true.
money to pay for that.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm
There
using
is some of that.
Alabama as an example, but I'm not positive that they do reciprocity. But that I know that exists with certain states
It
close to Georgia.
it does, and
So,
I don't know whether it's in the Georgia system or not.
which is great. I think that that kind of synergy between states to try knowing that certain kids are going to want programs that are offered in nearby states, like for example, Alabama, that aren't offered here in the United States, in Georgia, or it's a better program, then the student has the option to do that. I think that is that's the kind of thing that we should be doing more often
Yeah. And you're still
across the
right.
country.
You're still
So,
keeping those close to be.
mhm.
If they go to Alabama versus
Yeah,
Georgia, Tennessee versus South Carolina,
exactly.
okay, that keeps the general opportunities and the economics close at hand as to what you
Mhm.
want the education system to work for you
Exactly.
and what yeah.
And so, and that's a shining star for Georgia in terms of education. But still, Georgia unfortunately ends up at way down in the bottom. It's down in the lower 40s or the upper 40s when it comes to ranking nationally for the quality of education that
The
they serve their
education. Yeah.
students in and how many students actually matriculate out of high school, how many graduate. You know, Georgia has a lot of work to do. And but the Hope Scholarship on the college level and the postgraduate level, not postgraduate in terms of after your baccalaureate, but after high school, there's a lot of support for kids there. And
That would be an interesting. That would be
so,
interesting to see how you break that out.
well,
You
and
know,
that,
college and 2-year trade school
well, and
college
there's a lot of
versus
good
the
statistics
lower
looking at it.
levels.
Yeah. And so, there's not a lot for kids that don't want to go to college, that just want to go into workforce. And we're starting to address that. For example, when for a long time, kids have had the option of taking AP classes to earn college credit while in high school, if they're sufficiently advanced to do that. They've had the option of doing some vocational things, like Cherokee High School in Cherokee County has had a fantastic welding program and auto shop program that is recognized statewide as one of the premier programs. And so they're trying to push those programs. But what the thing that my daughter took really good advantage of was oh crap, here goes my brain again. not open enrollment. It was the ability to take college classes at Kennesaw State University while she was in high school.
Right.
Dual enrollment. Thank you. And so the dual enrollment program was only for going to like Kennesaw State or a local college. Well, the 2 years ago when I stopped teaching, that was that upcoming school year, which was the fall of 2022, was the first time that that dual enrollment program was going to be available for students that were going into VOTEC training, so they could use it to go to trade school.
Yeah.
And that's a fantastic move, but it should have been done a long time
A long time ago.
Taking VOTEC out of the high schools was one of the biggest mistakes we ever made as a country
Yeah, because it's a known fact
in
that
education.
it's a known fact that that the trade schools and the trade workforce, the welders, the electricians, we're way short in that area. Across the
Well,
country,
yeah, we stopped educating
we
them.
stopped educating.
And then we imported that labor through illegal immigration.
Yeah.
Where's the, I mean, that just doesn't make any sense, you know? So we stopped educating our kids to do jobs that would have earned them a very strong living
Very
wage
comfortable.
right out of their
That-
apprenticeship programs.
Yeah.
And instead we're importing cheap labor from somewhere else, and now we have an illegal immigration problem.
Yeah, we got a long way to go.
Problems of our own making.
Yeah.
I'm an expert in that, by the way. I have 61
Is there
years of
time?
experience in doing that. So we're almost out of time.
Okay.
It's been absolutely wonderful, John, with you about all of this, Pat.
It was a great start.
Yep.
And
And
hopefully we'll get better.
we appreciate all of you that are listening out there, and please leave us your comments about our free-flowing conversation about these topics, and please give us some ideas for future podcasts that are related to these topic areas we touched on. And if we can squeeze them in, we definitely will.
And we would appreciate you spreading the word. We'd like to have more people listening and more people inputting. So again, Georgia Peachcast, and there'll be a way in which to get a hold of us on that respect.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's what you hear at the end of every other podcast. Like, share, and subscribe.